So how we're getting on? Yeah? In the last couple of weeks, we've gone through, haven't we? We've kind of started with some simple data and we've brought it in and we've explored really the ETL processing, the extract, transform and load that goes on within Power Query. We then brought our data through into the main Power BI desktop visualization area, put some relationships in, done some simple measures with drag and drop, written some measures, including a calculate using the clause or the filter statement or the context adjuster of use relationships. Big things to be going through. We've used visual calculations and, let's not forget, we also managed to put in a hierarchy. So we're already actually going really far along here. But there's a few things that we should really go back and revisit. And we've done it this way because you need to think, right, or be aware that there isn't really a problem with saying, right, I've got this plan, we're going to go through and do this. This is going to be what we do. And then changing your mind and doing something different. So in our case, there's a couple of things that we've gone through. There's a couple of bits that I looked at and thought, well, okay, we'll do. And then I've looked at them, and as I was looking through them and doing some stuff, and after we had an issue on week 2, I was like, no, this is definitely the wrong thing. I think I've missed something. I've mixed it up or caused a problem. But it'll also give us a chance to have a look at something that'll be interesting to see. So that we'll do that. That's one of the things. And the other thing is, of course, customer. So we tweaked the customer. So I thought, let's go and have a look at fixing customer as well. Before we do all that though, let's have the boring bit. Geordie Intelligence is of course a YouTube channel. That means it's entirely dependent on your interactions with it. How many of you like the videos? How many of you subscribe to the channel? Do you add comments to say how much you like things or what you don't like as well? Both are just as important. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. Let people, I'll answer them, or maybe even somebody else watching, another person who's watched will answer it. Best thing to do though, is ask questions. When we stop asking questions, we stop learning. So here we are, back in Power BI desktop. Okay, we've got our matrix visual that we built last week with the additional measures that we wrote, the visual calculations. If you see on the right-hand side, if we zoom in, and I have to move my head a bit. We've got the visual calculations. On the left-hand side, we've got the result of our hierarchy, of course, haven't we? So we can actually drill in. So we look at furniture. We can actually, I'm only interested in bookcases. So I'm only interested in the Atlantic Metals mobile bookcase, for example. So we can really see there's a lot we can do with these. And it's all, of course, interactive. And that interactivity is the power that is Power BI. Okay, so we're going to fix customer and we're going to fix orders as well. Okay, so there's 2 things to fix. Orders and sales. We'll fix both of them because I think some of the stuff from the orders needs to go into the sales, right? I think some of the stuff that's in our customers, we need to just tweak that, change how we've done stuff. So I thought we'll really enjoy this. This is going to be a fun one, I think. So let's start by fixing the orders. So the way we're going to do this is we go back into the query editor. And the way we get back into the query editor, once we're in here and we've done some work with it, you think, well, how do I get back? So on the Home tab, top, you got Transform Data. We're going to click on that. And we can click, if we click the drop down, we've got the Transform Data, or we could just click Transform Data. And it'll open up the Power Query window with all the queries that we've got in already. Okay. Now, one of the things that went through as I was doing various things when I accidentally picked the wrong date in the use relationships option, which just caused me to, my head went mad and I went around, did all sorts of things trying to think of it, was we've got orders. And at the moment, what we've done is we've got a couple of things in orders that I think we shouldn't have in orders. Okay. So what I was thinking is probably ship mode potentially doesn't belong in orders because that potentially is something that we haven't done any analysis on to see, well, is ship mode unique? 2 things. So potentially we should be taking ship mode and actually putting that and leaving that in sales, or, well, leaving it in sales because it's an attribute on its own. So in essence, we're going to treat it, okay, in inverted commas, treat it as a foreign key, okay, so it'll still be there. And even though it's going to be within sales, but remember we hid sales. So what can we do to manage that and to mitigate that? So we can, as I say, make it a foreign key. So we can actually take standard class or any of these, and actually we should be able to do something to make a foreign key and then have a primary key table elsewhere. Okay, so we have like a way for it to link. Yeah, even at the most simple level, we could just extract the unique values, pair them back and link it in. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Okay, because that's simple. Order date, I was thinking, sorry, not order date, ship date, I was thinking, potentially, we've got no way of knowing that every item that's in an order is being shipped at the same time, which is why I'm saying we'll potentially do it. But also potentially some items might be shipped a different way based on what they are compared to the rest of the items in the order. So I thought, we've made an assumption about our data, which happens. And when you're doing certainly even the first stages of a data model, you need to take a lot of assumptions, because it's better to have something and then say, well, this bit doesn't work, that bit doesn't quite work, and we work to fix that, than saying, well, we can't do anything until we've worked everything out. Okay, because if you don't do anything until you've worked everything out, you never do anything. We start and then we tweak the bits that need work. Okay, that's continual improvement. That's really how Power BI works, and where the power, again, of Power BI comes in. It's that ability for us to go back in, tweak this, do stuff. All right, so we've got the ship date here. So we're going to take the ship date out. We're going to take ship mode out as well. Okay, I'm going to leave these, even though I don't think we necessarily need them. Okay, we're just going to leave them. I don't think they're really causing us any real cost in terms of the size of the model, but of course they're not adding anything to what we're doing, and we so far aren't using them, but in theory we might do. But for now, I'm going to just leave them, but we will look to remove these things. So I'm going to zoom back out again. Okay, and what we've got here is we've got these applied steps. So if you remember, what we really want to get rid of is this grouped rows, okay, which is where we did that like a group by clause. So we said, well, let's keep these and then aggregate the rest, which is again why I'm saying potentially we're going to lose the others anyway. Gosh, yeah, why was I saying we're going to keep them? We can't keep them, we're just going to lose them. So, or should we go back? Should we go back? Let's get them. Okay, one of the things you'll notice, you can't Control Z, undo stuff in here. What you have to do if you've done something silly like this is go through to File and Close, come back out, and then we'll scroll right over and we're going to say discard the changes. Okay, so that's rolled back any changes that were made to the model. Okay, and it's presumed there's a box there, yep, saying discard the changes. Right, so again, remember Power Query, the query editor side, we'll go back in transform data, is building a script. It's not doing anything until you hit refresh. So the script is there, you're working on it in parallel to it. Until you close and apply, it's not going to actually write anything back into the model. So we'll go through and we'll do this again. So we'll go into our orders, wasn't it? I'm going to click on here, the little cog. We're going to get rid of ship mode. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete ship date. Let's just zoom in so you can see. So we're clicking on the three dots. I'm going to click delete. We're going to keep those ones. And I'm going to click OK. Zoom out again. And then where we've got this removed other columns, remember we always do remove other columns. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the cog next to it. That'll open up a table here where I can pick what I don't want. So I'm going to remove ship date and ship mode. Yeah, so we've got our resultant table at the end. If we go right down to the last step, is here. And we've got our order date and the order, and then we've got the information about the order. So the order sales amount, the order quantity, so how many things were ordered, the item quantity. We call that order item count, shouldn't we? But yeah, got the order profit, and we've got the number of rows. So, which is distinct products, would probably be the right way of putting that. Okay, so we've kind of got that table sorted out now. For the sales table, this is our fact table, remember, okay? So as I say, one of the things I did when I was going through and trying to tinker with this, we worked out what's going on, trying to work my head out. I don't understand. I ended up keeping a few things. One of the things we kept was around, I put in order date and ship date because I tried these with different dates. And that's where I thought, well, hang on, let's do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep order ID because we need that joins us back into that order table. We're going to get rid of order date though. Okay, remember we're going to keep ship mode and we're going to do some funky stuff with that. And then the rest of it is as it is. So right over on the right hand side, we're going to remove other columns. I'm going to click back on here. And what we're going to do is get back rid of order date. Okay, the rest we can keep. Excellent. So we've got that. That makes sense. Okay. Now, one of the things we need to do is we're just going to go back to our sample superstore, and because we need to create our ship mode table, don't we? So we're going to go right click on that, new reference. Yeah. So from reference, and this is going to be shipping mode. And then what we'll do here is all we really want to keep is shipping mode. So I'm going to select shipping mode, right click on it, remember, and remove other columns. So we're just keeping this one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it again, and we're going to remove duplicates. So we've got 4 options here. Okay, so we've got same day, first class, second class, standard class. What we could do is we could write a column. So if we went through and we said, right, we're going to go in, we're going to add a column. It's going to be a conditional column. Okay. And this is mode order. Okay. So if ship mode equals first class, that's going to be 1. Oh, second class, move that, all right. That's going to be 2. Ship mode equals standard class. It's going to be 3. Oh, I've just seen we've got same day, isn't it? Same day. We want that to be at the top, don't we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that as 0. Okay. Otherwise, blank. Let's see what we get. So we get this. We've got a mode order here, which is what we want. We're going to make that whole number, so we can then choose to sort by that. So if we went and we said, let's sort that ascending, see, we get same day, first class. So in our slicer list, we can sort by that, and it'll then appear that way. Make left much better, won't it? Okay. So we've got a shipping mode table. Okay. Now, customers. So the challenge that we've got with customers is we need to split, don't we, customers and address information. So what we're actually going to need to do is to keep these 3 columns together and then come up with a way of dealing with the addresses as well. And that's kind of where it's going to get difficult, I think, is probably the easiest way to put that. So what we can do with this is we can say, if we scroll right over to the right first, where we've got remove duplicates, we're going to remove the remove duplicates piece. Okay, so we've now got the distinct full list, haven't we, of everybody who's of all our customers at all our addresses. And the issue we've got is that we've got some customers have many addresses. So we can't necessarily just go and say, well, we're going to just pick that. I suspect there's going to be differences around the segment. So whether, it might be that home office, we've got a tendency that they've just got one, whereas corporate are the ones that potentially have multiple. Until we actually do a level of analysis on that, we just won't know. So the simplest way we can do this is to say, right, we're going to create 2 tables effectively for this, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to separate the 2 into 2 different tables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just right click here, and I'm going to duplicate this table. Okay, and I'll put them 2 next to each other. So one's customers, this one's going to be addresses. Okay, and I've duplicated them just because the only step that's left in them, if you remember, is remove other columns. So the first one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave everything in it. Okay, we're not going to change anything. The second one, the addresses, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to remove customer name, so customer ID, segment, customer name, customer ID, and segment. Okay, which should leave us country, city, state, postcode, region. Click OK. So what we've got now is we've got this information. So hopefully this information, we can deduplicate this information and we can then index it to have an address ID. So what does that mean? So what we'll do is we'll do Control A again to select everything. And we'll then, in the home, we're going to remove rows, remove duplicates. Okay, so we've removed duplicates from there. So we've now kept, these are the ones that we've kept, okay? And now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a column, add an index column, okay? It's going to start at 0, so I'm going to tell it I want it to start at 1, and we're going to give it a name. This is going to be address. Oh, if I type properly, address ID. Okay, so we've now got a unique identifier for an address. So what we can do now is we can come back to here and we can say we're going to, on the home tab, we are going to merge queries. So we're going to merge queries. Let's bring this in. This is where we effectively, if you're from an Excel background, it's like doing a VLOOKUP, okay? And it is just as bad as a VLOOKUP. So avoid them, they are not great, but we can do these across multiple columns. So we're going to pick country, I'm going to hold down Control, country, city, state, postcode, region. See 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is written there. I'm going to do the same here. So country, city, state, postcode, region. It's going to go through, it says, oh, I've matched all 9,994 rows. Brilliant. So we've got a match. Okay. Power Query is case sensitive, okay, which is the thing you need to remember and learn. So if you do this against all sorts of other data, potentially it's going to be problematic. If you've got case information, cases different within the columns of data here for your addresses, potentially you would have problems with it. In real world, if you're going to do it, I would say potentially create a separate set of columns, like duplicate set of columns at lowercase, or even just create a lowercase text string of everything to then use that for your join, just to make sure everything's lowercase and cases are being ruled out, especially when you're doing your deduplication. But, we could spend so much time going through all this and doing it. So we've got that. What we can now do in our customers table, and this is again one of the beautiful things about it being, or really, I think hopefully lands the view that this isn't real, that this is like, we're scripting how to do something. We can bring in the address ID. So we've got this address ID. We can then go and select the 5 columns that we needed. So I held down the Shift key, click from one to the other, right click on them and remove those columns. So we've got through to this point, haven't we? We've got this table structure here for our customers where we've got 4 columns. Now, what have we got here? We've got multiple customer IDs linking to multiple links to one address. So there's a one address to multiple customer IDs, but potentially as well, what we can see is that we've got customer IDs going to multiple addresses. So you end up with a many to many. So what this means is we have to do something different, but very common, okay? Because we said we couldn't have a many to many relationship. So what do we need to do? What we need to do is we say, right, this, I'm going to mark this as a temp table in my nomenclature. So I'm just going to put a T here. Okay, and I'm going to right click here and disable load for it. It's going to say potentially data loss, it's fine. Okay, because what we want to do is I'm going to reference this twice. So we've got reference 1, reference 2. So customer address link. Okay, this is going to be a link table. So all we're going to have is customer ID. I'm going to delete that and segment. That's all we want. Okay, and customer is going to be our customer table. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove address ID, and then we're going to remove duplicates from here. Okay. So we will select all the rows, remove duplicates. Okay. And oh, I've just thought we didn't remove duplicates from here as well, did we? Which we should do. So we're going to select these two, remove rows, remove duplicates. Okay. So we've now got a distinct list of everything that we need. Okay. So we've had to add a few tables to get this all to work. We've built another temporary table. If you remember, we had a temporary table before. Okay. Well, that was just kind of like a base table. I should really call that base, shouldn't I? Base query. Okay, I often use those. Okay, base query, which is where we're pulling the initial thing through. And we've got the customer where we've started to build that link table, and it either goes to the customer side or it goes into the link side. If you're not sure, what you can do is you can say view the query dependencies. This view is never the best, but it will show you kind of what's happening, especially as you look at more complicated models. But it allows you to really see the path, that you've gone on in your development. So we can see where we started, see things have gone through, we see that the measures table and the calendar table are separate, but we can see that whole table journey and history that things have gone through to get to where they are. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, zoom back out, I'm going to go back under home, I'm going to close and apply, and it's going to think through what's needed and build my model. Everything comes through. We've got a join, we've got the joins, everything is joined. Now, one thing that we've got to do, let's just double check, make sure that's joined on the correct thing. Yep, ship mode to ship mode. Yep. I'm going to click on here. Ship mode from mode order, I'm going to hide, and I'm just going to click on there, and I'm going to say sort that. My mind has gone blank. Sorry, and advanced. Sort by mode order. Okay, so we've got that. What we have here is this link table, and you can see it's many to many. So what we need to do is we need to do something a little bit special about it, because the relationship that we want is for it to go this way and that way. So this one has to be both directions, and this one has to be both directions. Now, putting in bi-directional relationships makes your models work really easily if you're not sure what you're doing. But they can cause an awful lot of problems because they introduce complexity that potentially isn't needed, and that you need to be aware of, would be what I would say most importantly. So a couple of things we're going to do here, but I'm just moving these around just so we can kind of see this a bit better. So what I'm going to do though, because I know these ones, I need the relationship to traverse this link table. Okay, so I'll hide the link table because I don't really want the link table to be seen. It's going to hide it. And what we can do is we can say this relationship where it's saying cross-filter direction. I'm going to say that's both, and you'll see it'll change the icon when I click apply changes. Sorry, yeah. So if we zoom in, it changes the icon. For this one, I'll click it again, come over here. This is going to be both. We're going to apply cross-filter direction to both. Okay, so we can now see that effectively it'll go both ways. So customers can filter addresses, so we'd only see the addresses that relate to the customer, and likewise it can go the other way. So we could use the addresses to filter customers, because that would be really what we'd want to do. In terms of the practical reasons for these, link tables are they're often used for things, but also in practice, a link table is a fact table. It just doesn't have any facts. Okay, there's no numerical information related to it. Okay, we could put some in and have another fact table, yay, but for the sake of this, we don't really need it. But we do know we need the relationships to be able to go this way, because we're not really interested in what's in there. You could put stuff in there and then you'd be able to use your context to make it better. If we got to a properly complex model, we might need to do this. But for now, we know where that is. If we were seeing issues with the data or with the values that came back, we'd know where to start. Okay. What I want to do as well, you can see this is starting to look a bit cluttered, isn't it? There we are, okay. So what I say, or what we always recommend, is you always have this all tables view, okay? Zoom in at the bottom. So you can see, you're going to struggle, right? I'd always say add one, okay? This is going to be products, okay? And I'm going to put in, okay, you're not limited to how many you have. Customers, okay? What you can do is you can drag tables through. So if I bring in, for example, that's customers, if I go back to products, if I bring in products and then the sales table, you'll see the join is there, okay, which is great. So I can do this. You can build up sections of your model. So where we've got complicated sections now, which is like the customer, if we bring in the customer address link as a starting point, I can right click on it and say add the related tables. And it just puts in these two here. Okay, so I'm going to put those there to there. Okay, and then just for this, I'm also then going to bring in sales. So we've got a clear set of information as to how these tables link together. And you can choose to put them vertically, do this. I've seen so many people saying you go top to bottom, you go left to right, you go right to left, you put the star schema, so you have the fact in the middle and everything else around the outside. Honestly, whatever works for you works, be all I will say. Corporately, we've said, well, we should try and come up with a standard to say we're going to go this way, that way. I've yet to find one that properly works beyond saying build lots and lots, potentially not lots and lots. You don't want to have hundreds of these, but 5 or 6 different things to show different portions of your measure or of your data model in a simple, structured way removes a lot of the challenges that you face. Obviously, good documentation as well is really important, but this is how we're going to go through and do it. So we've got everything in there, and I think we can all agree that looks a lot better than that. The last thing we need to do, I'm going to put calendar in here. Okay, because what we've got now, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it this way, why we did it this way, you're seeing now, is we've got links between order ID and sales. But now if I bring in calendar, we've got the dates to order date. But what we've done now is we put ship date here. So if we bring ship date to there, say, yeah, that's fine. Oh, it has to be passive. Okay, now it has to be passive because there's a circular relationship being created there. So what we could do at this point is we could say, well, we're going to make this a passive relationship. Okay, we could do. so that you would have to put in some sort of a classification for any relationship model that you're going to build. The use relationship clause will still work. If we say we use this one, it'll force that to be passive, but we're going to have to tweak the measures that we've already written that have got them. Yeah. So it's interesting to see what happens. We can do that and we'll see how those all work. So we click OK. This tells you, oh, I don't like it, okay, because total quantity and total sales do not work. If we expand down, but it's good, isn't it? It's made it quite clear. These ones aren't working. Fixie, fixie, pleasey, pleasey. So if we come up and we say under quantity sold, we can see the one that's broken. See, it's to order ship date. This is to sales ship date. And then it says it works, and then we'll do the same for sales amount. Instead of order, we'll say sales ship date, and they work. Those values look the same to me. Okay. We could double check. We could go back to our previous version. Bear in mind, this is week 3 version. So we could go back to the week 2 version and make sure these two work. Again, if you're doing these kind of things, do things like that. Make sure you're always checking, you comparing how updates are going through. Are we getting the responses that we expected to get? But what we can suddenly see is we've got this view that allows us to do things. We could also put in something like this. So we could put in ship mode, yeah, total quantity by ship mode. And then we could put on the legend for that. We could expand the products. We could expand the element of the subcategory and say, well, actually, we're just interested in the category, just to see what happens with each one. Okay. So building a hierarchy isn't going to force you to use the whole hierarchy. You can put in bits of the hierarchy to really gauge what's happening. And we can see, for example, the furniture. Some furniture has gone same day. What furniture would that be? We can click on that and we can see. What we also can do, so we touched a bit, didn't we, on the classification of data. So something people like to see a lot of in these things is maps. So now we've got addresses clearly there. Got the address ID. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the address ID. Okay, there's nothing to see here. Okay, we can say city. I'm going to click on city. And on the top up here, see we've got data classification or data categories. I'm going to click on there. City is city. Come back through here and you can see it becomes the little globe icon. Might not be there. You got a little globe icon now. It's not behind my head. Country, we can do the same. So we can pick country, classification. That's going to be country, not county. It says that. Postal code, do postal code. Okay, and then we've got region. I think region is something that doesn't make sense. Region is an internal thing within the business, and then state here is state. So that would be state or province. Okay. So we've got those done now. Okay, and that's left us with like a really nice table where we can say, well, if I pick state, for example, it builds a map for me. It now knows state as state. I can bring in city within state, okay, as a sub-tier of state. So we can then say, well, what's the total quantity? Yeah, well, the sales amount, everyone wants to know sales amount by state. So we can see California is pretty big. We can see we get a drill down, so we can then drill down into the different cities that we have within here. Now, this is all powered by Bing. So what's happening is behind the scenes, it's looking up where do those points need to go on the map. Okay, there's not an intelligent thing within Power BI, it's going a lookup service. Because it's doing a lookup, it's entirely dependent on what you do. So if, for example, we removed, let's come back up out here, and let's say we remove state, so we've just got city, you'll see cities will appear all around the world because city names are used across various areas, aren't they? So especially with the US, big chunks of the cities in the US are from the old world. Is that the right way to put it? Probably not. But where people came from. Okay, so like New York is of course New York. York is still there in the UK. I think sure London is there's a London in the US as well, for example, things like that. So we can kind of see what happens with that when we don't get these things correct. But what we could always do, of course, we know, yeah, because we can say, well, by postal code and put those on a map. Is it going to work? Let's put it as a legend, hasn't it? Oh, things are just sent to try me today, aren't they? Yeah, okay, so we've got postal code for that. So what we could do, though, is we could build a hierarchy for addresses. So what we would then do is we would go back to the addresses. Let's start with country. We're going to create a hierarchy. So I've clicked on that. I'm going to create a hierarchy. It's going to be the country hierarchy. Then we're going to have state. So I will add to country hierarchy. Then we've got, probably put region actually in there, shouldn't I? For all region isn't part of it. No, I think region is a legend thing, isn't it? And we're going to put city, yeah, country, which will, yeah, country, state, city, postcode. That makes sense to me. Yeah. Add to hierarchy country, and then lastly we will add postal code to hierarchy country, and then we'll do what we did before, which is we'll go through and we'll hide all of these. So left click on each one and hide it. Left click and hide. And you can see as well that I selected an item that now isn't available to pick. Doesn't affect it being used. It's already in use, so that's fine. Hide is not a delete. It's just, it's not available to pick. So you can build visuals with stuff and then hide them if you don't want people to be able to pick them and use them for their visuals. But you wouldn't want to do that, would you? Okay, so we've got that. So instead of this, what we could now do is we could bring in a whole hierarchy. So we can say, well, we're going to zoom in. We don't need the US, do we? So we can say, well, let's get rid of country from our hierarchy. Obviously, if you had multiple countries, you might want that. But now we've got that, we could say, well, I want to zoom in on Texas. So we could drill down into Texas and see the cities that there are. We could see, Houston, we've got loads. We could drill into Houston and we could see the actual points within Houston. So the postal codes within Houston and where we're selling items to. Then we can zoom back out again and we could do the same anywhere else. And then, as I said, I think in my mind, region is probably a legend thing. So we put, if we put region in, you see we get legends to it. We can then color it by that. So we might have different teams, regional teams that are involved in selling to those. Okay? Yeah? Champion. So we've got our basic report that we've built now. Okay? One of the things I want to do is show you this. So what we can do is we can turn around and we say File and Publish to Power BI. I'm going to save our changes. Okay, come up. I need to log in for this, so I will connect to my account. Okay, so you've connected, and what we're going to do is we're going to put this into Back to Basics. So publishing week 3 to Back to Basics. What I could do now is here, I will do, and I will share it with you so you can have a look and see what's going on with it. Okay, so we've got it. It's there. If I go to my Power BI desktop, my Power BI environment, you can see it's published. I can click to view the report here. Okay, brilliant. I've got the report as we did before with pages 1, 2, and 3. Okay, of course, page 1 where we were dragging things and dropping things. Yep, summer sales is not working because of the way we've made changes to it. See, because we had DAX, fixed those in DAX, and everything else that used it downstream works again. So because you drag and drop, that's a risk. Something happens and you break the relationships, or the relationship structures change, this can break. In this case, I believe it's because of the country filters, that probably the fields really don't exist anymore. We can click edit and edit this to see. So yes, it's state. So if we came in here, we'd have to go to addresses. We could bring that in and say, look, let's bring in state there. Let's remove that, and we don't want country. Sum of sales, and we've got ship mode. So what we need to do is bring ship mode in as the legend, and it works again. Okay, so that's easy to do. We did all that online, and that's want you to remember that. Okay, so I've made those changes online, but if we go back to our Power BI desktop file, they're still broken. So because you can edit content online, your content offline potentially isn't aligned, even though I've just published it. I might publish it and I've got to go and present this to my boss now. I'll just quickly tweak that, fix it. There we go. He's going to say, or she is going to say, I want these changes. I'll go back, open Power BI desktop, make the changes, publish it. That's what you said, boss. Well, what about that? That looks stupid. It's broken again. Okay. This is one of the things that becomes a real pain in the neck, and is why I always say do it in a particular way. Okay, and it's one that's difficult. We can't really show in demos too well, but in the real world with your business, this works really well. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the semantic model. Now this is, of course, the important bit of our Power BI file. And what Power BI Desktop does is it creates a model and a report. So it's creating two artifacts, but it makes you think of them as one. But if we go back to Power BI Desktop now, and if I go, let's go to create a file, new blank report. Okay, it's going to open something up. What I can do here, when this opens, is I can say, I want to get data from an existing model. Okay, so we're going to connect to a Power BI semantic model. I'm going to click on that. It's going to open up and say, well, these are the ones you've got available to you. I could choose, say, well, I want this one. I could choose, say, well, I want to work against Newcastle Park runs. So the last video series we did, all these interim ones that we've gone through. And this list is based on what I have access to. So I am, of course, a developer for in this environment. You will be a developer in your environment, but anybody else will only see what they can see, or even you as well. So if two developers in two different departments are working on different things and you don't have access to each other's data, you won't see them. Equally, you can say, well, you're a big part of the development team, but we've got the HR model that only two developers can access. We can do that. Being able to access this isn't necessarily saying you've got full access to it as well. You've got access to data, as not saying you can read it to your heart's content. You can still have role-based access going over on top of this access layer, which is going to be a real game changer when you get right down to it. But I've come through here. I've clicked to say, well, I want to create this. I'm just going to go down here and say connect. Okay, zoom back out. And Power BI Desktop will open. I've got all this. It looks just like it was before. I've got the tables on the right-hand side on the data. But hang on, wait. I've not got the data view. I can't just view the tables. Okay, this is now in query mode. So the model is in the service, but I can choose to say, well, I want to know. So we looked, didn't we, before it? We could say, well, let's bring ship mode in as a slicer. So I'm going to choose that as a slicer. Make that smaller. Okay. We could then say, well, let's bring in products. Okay. And then we could say, well, products, we want to know about sales amount by product. Okay, so I've just brought that in. That's not too difficult, is it? So far, we're kind of making sense of this. This is easy. What we can do with this is we could choose to right-click and drill down into technology, into phones. Okay, so we're actually starting to really filter and see what is happening across our data sets. Okay, and the last thing we want to do, of course, is let's bring in, if we go into our addresses, let's bring in our lovely map. Okay, so we'll get rid of country. So we've got this. And what I'm going to do with this is I want to put in the quantity. Okay, so we can bring quantity in as bubble size. So the total quantity of things that have been shipped. So we can click to say, well, what about this? We could choose, well, if we pick same day, what's going on? How does that reflect versus everything else? So we can choose to actually start to really see what's happening across our environment. Okay, it would be nice if we actually had some indicators on there, wouldn't it? So we should put some, let's go to here, not there, press the wrong button, haven't I? Yes, no, it was the right button. Formatting, let's put in data labels. Okay, let's do the same here. Category labels, do that. Okay. Okay, so we're starting to build something up, aren't we, where we can see what's happening. Okay, so I've done a few things. You can imagine I've built this, whatever the report is I need. I can then just go and hit and say, well, publish it. I need to save it. Secondary. Okay, so I call it secondary reports. I always call them secondary reports. Microsoft calls them thin reports. I'm not comfortable saying thin reports more because that means we have to have fat reports as well. Whereas primary and secondary reports, I don't know, that's me. I'm maybe being too woke, which given I'm a grumpy old man, I don't know what that means. If we come back to our service page now and we refresh it, what you can see I now have is I've got a semantic model and two reports. And if I click on my report, it tells me where data exists. Now, okay, I published this to the same place. I don't need to. I can publish it to a different workspace, which is where we can start to discuss things like a workspace strategy. Because if your visualizations are in a separate workspace to the data, shouldn't your visualizations be structured around the users rather than the data? What do I mean? So if we built and looked at our sales team for their things, presumably it's not just sales that they need to look at. They'll be looking at other things that they've got for other systems potentially that aren't in our semantic model. They might have a phone system. How many calls were answered on time? How many calls were we late with? Do we got customer feedback? Is there a satisfaction survey? Is it, all these things potentially could all be fed back in. If we built multiple semantic models and we surface all the reports that relate to that area of the business up in one place, that's easier for them, isn't it, than putting it in multiple places? Think on that one. So Power BI doesn't just work by saying I've built one report, published it, that's all that exists. It's this idea that the semantic model that we build is the actual important thing, the most important thing in many ways. Dragging and dropping and producing secondary or thin reports, whichever one you want to go with, I'm sticking with secondary. It's incredibly easy to do. And when you get to the point where you say, well, hang on, you mean I can go and I can do this and I can just create and do it? Wow, yeah, it works. Do you know, if you went to Excel, modern 0365 Excel, you can connect to existing semantic models and build pivot tables. You go a new pivot table from semantic model, and you can then pick that one, and the list is available to you based on who you are and what your rights are. So if I'm suddenly, I wonder how many same day deliveries do we do in Washington State versus Washington DC? Did we do them last month? The time it would take me to write the email to something that I think right? I could have done it by connecting to Excel or into Power BI desktop and building it for myself. The Power BI desktop interface is also available within the Power BI service in terms of I can build a report from here. What you can't do in Excel or in the Power BI desktop on the service side is create additional measures. Power BI desktop does allow you to create new measures, but in much the same way as your visual calculations, those secondary measures or those measures in secondary reports or measures in thin reports only exist within the context of that report. That's not to say they're terrible, because they're proper constructed DAX queries that work. So in theory, if you've got a good center of excellence built and somebody says, I've built this report and I had to write this measure, can you bring it into the main report so everyone can use it in other things that they want, or in Excel or anywhere else? No problem, there you go. Okay, we can schedule that and work through it. And it's relatively easy. You've just seen, we can copy and paste and put that in as a new measure into our main report, saying we can put it into a display folder so it looks good. The only issue you would ever have is if you don't use a different name when you publish it, the person who's got the secondary report, they can have a conflict because there's two items with the same name. Definitely a hashtag first world problems item, but it's worth being aware of. Okay, so you've got all those things that you can really dig into and extract and explore, and it will make a difference to your whole way of working, especially when that coin drops, as it were, that there's that, the semantic model is the important thing, and being able to connect additional data sets, or sorry, not data sets, additional reports to those adds to the power of it. Because suddenly I'm not having to make this stupid model that only one group are going to use. I can say, well, look, we're going to invest time and effort on these models and expand these models, because if every team in the business is using one semantic model, or even if they're using 5 semantic models, I can guarantee that's less work than if I was having to manage 20 or 30 different spreadsheets of report content for different people. Okay, that's true. Especially when I get to the point of saying, because it's published up into the service, I can schedule the refresh on it. So to use my real world example, when I started doing Power BI, I was working for an organization, and my month-end process was I would stay up until after 1:30 a.m. on the first of the month to run the SQL extracts to get the data out before too much came through into the system for the new month, because we didn't have proper scheduled extracts. Okay, so I would do all those things to make sure it worked. Okay, then I would spend the next 3 to 4 working days piecing together the various spreadsheet sources for all these things. Okay, invariably, I would have senior leadership team contact me, say, what's the number for this? What's the number for that? And you say, well, okay, based on where we are at the moment, it looks like it's about here. What's this exactly? And you'd have to give a number, and then invariably you'd have to go back and say, well, we've properly crunched everything, and it's 10 different. Oh, not gonna. Fast forward, say 6 months, as I had to learn and as the platform had progressed, and suddenly it was ready by, it was 2:30, 3 a.m. The report was ready on the 1st. Reports were ready on the 1st of the month. They were ready, they were accurate, they were properly built. It was after 2 a.m. because all the nightly backups were going on the databases. We let those all finish first. And then we did it. And then we used date filtering because we had a calendar table to say, right, this is all we're interested in. And it just was quicker, easier. It just, pains me to say it, but it just worked. So that's the kind of transformation you can get. So that's 4 days 4 work days of my time, so that's what, a fifth really of a work, maybe 25 days a month you can work, you're expected to work, is it? Some might say, 4 weeks a month, that's only 20 days, 22, 23 days. What's 4 working days of that, plus the half a day a week that I had to spend doing additional report loads. Suddenly I was able to do other things. And oh wait, I set up a whole reporting organization for the company, did all those other things. So it's not a case of saying, oh, because you free up this time, you get rid of people. You free up this time, they can do other things for your organization, make your lives better as a company. So if you like what you've seen, why not do the sensible thing? Be more Geordie. Get in touch with Geordie Consulting and we will work with you to unlock the potential of your data environment. I've got experience working with organizations of all sizes, and from small local businesses all the way up to large multinationals. Get in touch. The email address is consulting@geordieconsulting.co.uk, or we've got a link in the description down below to schedule a meeting for your initial consultation. For now though, stay safe, take care, ta-da.